Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 10, Episode 128. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being here this Tuesday, Steelers Nation. Dave, good to talk to you again. Sports are back in Pittsburgh. Pirates had some exhibition games, and they're 0-2, and their bullpen sucks, and I think everything's normal again. So I like that.
How many games are they scheduled to play? 60?
Yeah, in the regular season, 60. They have a third exhibition game, I think, Wednesday, and then I believe opening day is Friday at St. Louis.
If you had to predict how many wins for them out of 60, and I know you want to try to be optimistic here, so
I'm saying maybe 24 to 25 at best.
Ouch.
That bullpen is rough.
I noticed a bullpen. I didn't get to watch any of the game last night, but I watched the previous one a couple of days ago there, and they definitely gave that one away there. So is that where they're hurting the most? Is long relief and relief?
Yeah, I would say bullpen across the board. The pitching's okay. It's not great, and the offense is meh. And so put it all together. We'll see though. 60-game baseball season will be weird. It's like football playing, like 5 games or something. So, who knows? You get hot. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, anything can happen in a 5-game series, right?
Yeah, amen to that. All right, Dave, let's start off with we have some Steelers news. Yesterday, the back half of yesterday felt like a normal day for whatever reason. Some roster moves came in. Some unfortunate news, though, for former rugby player Christian Scotland Williamson. The Steelers waived him from their 90-man roster with an NFI designation. That's non-football injury, bit of a vague, broad term that can mean a lot of things. But in his place, they have signed former Chicago Bears tight end and out of Utah State, Dax Raymond. So Dax Raymond coming in for Christian Scotland Williamson, Dave.
Yeah, the thing about Christian Scotland Williamson is, obviously we don't, as you said, the non-football injury designation can mean so much stuff. So, and also his parents, dealt with quite severely, I think, too, judging by the article on Steelers.com with the coronavirus earlier this offseason here. Now, up until just, a few weeks ago, in fact, I think he had an interview, and I think I sent it to a couple of you guys on the site there of him, I think, with the Steelers pastor. And he seemed upbeat and ready to try to give this thing one more go here this summer. And obviously he up until I think about a week and a half ago was posting some workout kind of videos, balance and juggling videos on his Instagram account. So this one kind of came out of the blue with him, which makes you wonder, is there issues with his family, overseas? Does he have did he injure himself maybe during some sort of workout? Did he, so many things to speculate on that's probably good that we don't. But the fact of the matter is, even with this short, with this truncated, off season, the way things have gone, even though he's spent the last 2 seasons, on the practice squad there as part of the International Pathway Program, it was still going to be an extremely long shot for him to make the roster, and probably at best he was looking at a practice squad spot again. So out the door he goes, and I would venture a guess that it's probably his football career is going to be over at this point. We'll obviously see how it plays out, and we'll see maybe if he gets back into the rugby thing or if he gets on with his life's work.
Yeah, I think he was working with finance, I believe, in that interview that pastor was talking about, because rugby was just by happenstance, basically. He wasn't even really pursuing it, and then just so happened, got an opportunity, and the NFL came calling, and it was, obviously a chance that, you probably would never get again. So I don't begrudge him for making the jump to America, making the jump to the NFL. And he did show progression from year one to year 2, which you would expect, obviously, but it just was never going to be enough to make the 53. It was very quiet inside stadiums. He had some injury issues last year. So yeah, I think 1 to 2 things happened. Either he did suffer some sort of severe enough injury, or he just kind of knew the writing on the wall with the pandemic, wanted to go home. I just hope he can get home right now because I don't know what the status is with all the travel restrictions. So it's a story to tell for sure. I think that's kind of always been his mindset of just trying something new and giving things a shot, and he gave it a shot. And I give him a lot of props for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, look, we see these guys that come in with great stories. Who was it? Myron Rolle a few years ago?
Yeah, the surgeon. Yeah.
Boy, that guy's turned out to be something, right?
Mm-hmm. Life's work, for sure.
And, just goes to show you sometimes the athletic ability. And, look, he had great build and athletic ability, it looked like. And, even Mike Tomlin said if you can block a defensive end,
Yep.
In this league you can play, and unfortunate for him, but if a few years from now, we'll see if he'll just be a footnote, for the last couple of years as part of the the International Pathway Program. Wish him the best and all, but once again, he really had a tough road this offseason to make the roster.
Absolutely. And for those wondering, I believe his the pathway program for him was over. It was not going to be applicable this year. It was not going to be an exemption spot. He's made a regular 90 guys. So that may have played a factor if he did want to go home. Or again, there could have been an injury at play as well. Moving on to who the team signed with Dax Raymond. He was an undrafted free agent out of Chicago, coming out of Utah State. He caught 72 passes for 873 yards and 3 scores. He's about 6'5", 255, ran the 40 in 4.72. Our very own Daniel Valente has a great player draft profile on Dax Raymond you guys can check out on Steelers Depot. And those things are always valuable to circle back to give a quick refresher on who Dax Raymond is.
Yeah, how great was that, too? I think it was, Daniel's first profile?
Yeah, good first choice.
Yeah. That's part of the fun, I think, in this is trying to identify the guys that we think the Steelers might have interest in, and as we go through the offseason draft profiles, and obviously we do so many of them from start to finish, but usually the beginning ones of them are ones that we feel the Steelers might have interest in, whether it be due to positional needs or the kind of player that that they look at. And kudos to Daniel for identifying him. I went back and kind of went back through that profile and watched just a little bit of tape last night on Dax Raymond as well too. He obviously was undrafted, landed with the Bears. I think had a head injury of some sort. I think in the final preseason or next to final preseason game last year with the Bears, had to get waived injured, landed on their IR, got a injury settlement. Circled back, I believe, to their practice squad, and I think stayed there the rest of the year. If memory serves me, they signed him to a futures contract after this past season ended, but then after the draft, they went ahead and turned him loose, and I think he's been unemployed ever since. It seems like this move has been probably in the works the last few days, judging by his dad, I think, posting a picture of the Steelers logo on his Twitter account and the logo only, I think on like the 16th. So evidently this was kind of maybe in the works here coming for Dax Raymond. But my biggest takeaway, and I don't know how much tape you've watched on him since yesterday, Alex. I haven't watched a ton. I'm going to dive into more of it today. But on the surface here, my initial thought is, hey, this is a good guy to have at the bottom of the tight end depth chart, pushing up towards Kevin Rader and Zach Gentry. Apologies to Christian Scotland Williamson, but he wasn't really offering that, in my opinion. Now, will a guy like Raymond ultimately make the 53 or make the practice squad? Who knows at this point? If anything, at least he's not coming in too far behind the 8 ball because he hasn't missed any off-season practices. Right. He's only missed several Zoom meetings here. So he's in at the start of training camp. We'll see how it works out. But my first impression is not a bad guy to bring in to push from the bottom of the tight end depth chart.
Yeah, and they need some of that depth because it is not great right now. So I think it's a good yin to the yang of Kevin Rader. Rader's more of a blocker. Raymond's probably more of a flex tight end who can block, but is certainly more athletic and I think a better player than what Christian Scotland Williamson was going to bring to the table. Let me just read from Daniel's scouting report just a couple of brief blurbs. Daniel says he's versatile, can play inline, H-back, or out wide. He flashes good hands. He's a physical blocker. His route running is smooth. The negatives, he's an older guy. He did a mission at Utah State, so he's a little bit older, although that's not super relevant for Pittsburgh's purposes. And he says his hands could be a bit more consistent when high pointing the football. So interesting guy. And given, the COVID concerns and already the normal durability concerns of guys like Vance and Ebron, that tight end depth, unfortunately, knock on wood, could be tested at some point. So it is important to have some quality guys there because Gentry's an unknown, and you didn't want to just rely on Kevin Rader just to kind of assume him a spot on the practice squad.
The quick takeaways from what on the film I have watched on Dax Raymond is kind of hit and miss as a blocker. When he gets good leverage and gets that base, especially as an inline guy, he can move some people around. But on the flip side, if you're wanting to use him kind of as the end of the line of scrimmage and treat him having to pass protect sometimes and move out in space, not so good in that aspect there. Definitely going to have to work on the blocking side of things now as a tight end, detached from the line of scrimmage. Not sudden, not a lot of twitch with him, but he seems like he has a good sense of where he is at on the field, especially against zones, being able to work on extended plays to the quarterback and help the quarterback out. Wasn't he an ex-quarterback at a time?
It's not in Daniel's bio, so I'm not sure, but I could try to pull up his Utah State bio if you.
Yeah, I can't remember if he was the one that was kind of recruited maybe initially as a.
That would be in vogue with Zach Gentry on the roster. It'd be a very Steelers thing to do.
Yeah, it would be a very Steelers thing to do. But we'll dive into his tape. I found, I think, all but the bowl game from 2018 season on him. So maybe I can put he missed I think 4 games with some sort of injury in his final season. That's why his stats took a little bit of dive there. But with so few targets there and so few catches overall in the 2018 season, I should be able to put up a pretty good contextualization on some targets on him. And after doing that, that'll give us a little bit of better idea, I think, of him as a route runner and pass catcher.
It does not appear he was a quarterback. He was a receiver his senior year, caught 23 touchdowns his senior year. I don't see anything on quarterback for Dax Raymond.
All right, maybe somebody else I was thinking about.
Yeah, but there you go. So there's your signing, and kind of transitioning into the landscape today. I'm still trying to figure out some of the things the NFL and NFLPA have agreed upon. There was a report saying that today we'll find out if there's going to be 90-man rosters or 80-man rosters for the offseason. I'm like 95% sure there's going to be no preseason games. I believe that was the NFL proposal. I don't believe it's 100% confirmed and agreed upon yet, but that seems overwhelmingly likely that there will be 0 preseason games in 2020. Is that kind of your take on the situation, Dave?
Yeah, I think that's and look, once obviously this is still a lot of bargaining going on, and I'm not surprised now that the NFL probably using those preseason games as a hard bargaining chip, along with the testing and all like that to potential. We'll see what happens on the financial. I think that's the biggest thing right now left is negotiating kind of what's going to happen with the cap and business losses, and how is that going to be eaten? Is it going to be eaten in 2021? Which it seems like the NFL is wanting to happen. They want to just go ahead and get it, swallowed and washed down all in one season instead of kind of stretching this thing out, for a couple of years. I sure hope the NFLPA doesn't give in on that, Alex. Because I've said this several times. I don't think people understand what it's going to do to the landscape across the NFL, and especially the middle class type players. It's going to cost a lot of jobs across the NFL. Your Vince Williams and he's just one of probably several examples. You could go through all these rosters, and these guys are going to be out of jobs because teams are going to have to make a lot of teams are going to have to make a lot of significant cuts probably not only next year, Alex, but maybe this summer as well too, because because you can carry over cap money and all, it would make sense that if you have guys kind of at the bottom of the roster, yeah, they might be experienced, but they might be costing you $4 or $5 million in salary this year, and if you can get a guy that can get you close in special teams production and maybe limited on the field production for $3 million less, that can go on to next year's pile, as far as cap space and all goes. But I think the testing protocol right now includes for daily testing for at least 2 weeks, and I think if each team, I think it's on a team by, if I'm reading it right, it's team by team basis. If they test less than 5%. It will move away from the daily testing, but if it's more than 5%, then they have to stay with that until they reach the proper thresholds, right?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was team by team, if it was just a league-wide basis, but if it's below 5%, then I think they go to every other day with testing. For now, it'll be daily testing. I think once camp is about to begin, you'll get tested, I think, twice. I think you have to have 2 negative tests, and there's a 24-hour waiting period between to get results back before you can even enter the facility. So you're going to be tested twice before you even are allowed in the facility. From there, my understanding is daily testing until you're below 5%, and then it'll go to every other day testing.
And how do those little monitors or what?
I haven't. There's an alarm that goes off if you get too close to someone.
Wow. Yeah. But doesn't it also record?
Does it?
I thought I read something where it records, kind of who kind of maybe conversation. I forget what all it records, but those kind of chips that players are going to have to wear. I got to read more into it, but it sure sounds interesting that such a thing, technology can do those kind of things and all.
Contact tracing, and I don't know every single detail about it, but basically, like if you're tier 3 and you get near a tier 1, which will be a player, and you get within 6 feet and an alarm goes off, really wild stuff. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of chaos. And to the cap side of things, I'm with you. I don't know there's any way the union can accept the cap being slashed by $70 million. I don't see any benefit to that as opposed to just spreading it out over a multi-year period. I don't think that's good for the owners. It's not good for the team. It's certainly not good for the players. And while I think Vince Williams even saw your comment and nobly said, if I got to get cut, I got to get cut. I mean, I can respect that, but no one wants that to happen.
Did he comment on that?
I believe he did. Yeah, yesterday, 2 days ago. I think he saw one of your quotes.
What was the quote that I had out there that it could be a guy like that it would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you found one of your tweets about that. Let me see if I can find through his Twitter timeline. It was the other day. You had tweeted on the 16th, Vince Williams will be a perfect example of a player on the Steelers roster hurt by this in 2021. That's in reference to the cap being potentially reduced. Heck, it could wind up costing him this year if the two sides don't figure this out. Vince Williams found your tweet and said, I don't care if this happens. I'm here for the protection of our players. If we can't get a fair deal, then playing under the current CBA is what must be done. Again, no one wants that situation because it's not just Vince Williams. It'll be, as you said, basically the entire football middle class, and that's a lot of guys out of a job.
Yeah, I didn't see where he responded on that, but I hope he didn't take what I put out there as a negative. It was more of a protection of him.
Yeah, I don't like interpret it as a negative, but it just you can't. I don't see why the NFL is pushing so hard to just tank the cap this year because of the ramifications it's going to have for their own teams. I mean, it's going to gut their rosters.
Right. So, we'll see how this plays out. I would think I've been saying this for a couple of weeks now. I would think by by Friday that we'll know a little bit more about this. I mean, hopefully they'll get all this set in stone by this weekend. So at least we can start, dealing with the facts instead of, we think this is where they're at, and we can start not only educating ourselves, but the listeners as well.
Mm-hmm. But we basically know that at best case scenario, in terms of what's going to happen this summer, there'll be one preseason game and probably very, very likely 0 preseason games. So by that, they may just cut the roster to 80 because at that point, those guys at the back end of the roster, 81 through 90, have really 0 opportunity to show themselves. And we're not going to be able to learn a whole lot about these guys at all, unfortunately, this summer because it's not going to be available. The tape's not going to be out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know how – I know where you come in on this, and look, I'm with you. They'd have 8 preseason games if it was up to me, just because I like football, and I would be more selfish from the fan side than I would probably the players and the players side of things and all. But I kind of view one almost like none,
Yeah.
So we'll see how it plays out. It'll be certainly understandable, and I understand the players side of this. At least the guys that are fairly safe to make the roster. One more game exposes you more and can wind up hurt. And look, the whole testing thing too is not so much on from the players individually as it is them being concerned about their own families.
Right.
I
Sure.
wanted to make sure they don't contract it and take it home to their loved ones, or maybe they have parents living with them that are up in age, or a lot of different situations people go through that we just don't know about and all. So kudos to them for sticking to that. And hopefully the NFLPA has a few more wins throughout this thing.
I hope so. Though it's important as a reminder, I know you recognize this, that athletes can still get severely sick. The Braves' Freddie Freeman said his fever was 104.5, and he thought he might die. Like, it was that bad the one night. So even though you're a top athlete and you're in great shape, this virus can still, knock you down pretty good. So, there's a lot of concerns or a lot of worry there, and we'll keep you updated. Hopefully, by next show, I know we always say this, we'll have some really concrete answers because time is simply running out. One thing we do know, though, Dave, is that for week 1, at least barring anything dramatically different, when the Pittsburgh Steelers travel to take on the New York Giants, there will be no fans in the stands. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy announced basically that no fans or anything like that for sporting events, and the Giants are going to comply. So week 1 should be empty when Pittsburgh travels for Monday Night Football to take on the Giants.
Yeah, at least they don't have to worry about Steelers fans taking over the stadium, do they?
Fair point.
Someone tweeted that out to me yesterday. I thought that was cute, because Lord knows there would still probably be, even though, I don't know, week one Monday night, in the Meadowlands at MetLife, probably tickets would be hard to come by for Steeler fans, but they always manage to find a way to infiltrate stadiums across the league, and especially ones kind of in the vicinity of Pittsburgh there. But yeah, look, it's kind of a byproduct of what we've kind of have seen, unfortunately, coming this whole time, and they're one of a few teams, I think, already to announce that there won't be any fans. Obviously, still, 55 days away from that game taking place. It feels long, but it feels short too, can enough happen in a short enough amount of time where they could make the ruling to change that and still be able to, have the right personnel in place, employees at the stadium? Probably not. Right. So I think at this point, barring something just, weird, astronomically weird happening, that there will not be any fans in attendance at that week 1 Monday night game at MetLife Stadium.
That, I think, is a safe expectation right now. For Pittsburgh, not a whole lot of updates on what's going to happen in Heinz Field. Last thing that was communicated to season ticket holders was reduced capacity, and of course, all fans, if fans can go, will have to wear masks. No really update since then. Cases have been on the rise in Allegheny County and Pittsburgh. No update on if there'll be fans for the 2 training camp practices the league will allow teams to do. A lot of teams are just saying no to that, including the Giants. So I doubt the Steelers will have any fan event for training camp, and best case scenario for fans during the season will be at a severe reduced capacity in the 10 to 14,000 people range.
Yeah, look, why? Once again, my selfishness would like 2 practices for fans and you to be able to attend, but what's the right thing probably to do here? It's to not allow any of that.
Yeah.
The minutia of this whole thing is going to be tough enough just with no fans involved. So why would you want to add another an extra layer to that? Would kind of be my thoughts on it there. So we'll sit and the info comes in almost daily or every other day on this stuff. So we'll sit and wait for it and decipher it as it comes in.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Other news, and I don't want to dwell on this too much because I think both of us are very skeptical of this news, but Antonio Brown has announced his retirement for the fourth time, I think, now in his career. He had a couple of tweets yesterday, basically just saying the most important one. At this point, the risk is greater than the reward. Thank you, everyone who's been part of this journey. I sincerely thank you for everything. Life goes on. 84. So this feels like you can't fire me, I quit situation. And I bet if a team comes calling at some point, if AB gets cleared by the league and the investigation, reinstates him essentially, that he'll probably be willing to return to football. But for now, AB says he's hanging up his cleats.
Yeah, and look, this pandemic obviously hasn't played in his favor either.
Most things have not played in AB's favor in the last 18 months.
Right, and obviously a lot of that, or seemingly is a lot to his own doing.
Right.
And I think I read something where he was maybe close to settling that charge, or not charge, the allegation against him, I guess, the sexual assault, I guess. But that hasn't gone through, I don't think. I think he got close and then backed out, and who knows what's going on with him off the field there. But if a team got in a situation where he was able to play and they could sign him and offered him a deal, I bet he'd be right back in this thing. But until that happens, look, I'll believe it when he files his papers,
Right.
But the thing is, that window with him, Father Time hasn't been slowed by any of this. And although I think, Antonio Brown probably still has the ability to play in this league and play at a high level, the longer that you don't do it and the older you get, of course, the harder it is. So it very well could have seen AB play his last down in the NFL. And if it is, what a career, when you speak about just what had happened on the field with him. And I put it out on Twitter, yesterday. Is he a Hall of Famer? Will he eventually get in the Hall of Fame?
What were the results of that poll? I have not seen.
It was, I forgot to look at it last night.
I looked at it early, and then I haven't looked at it since.
I'll have to pull that up here while we're talking here. But look, I mean, there was a period of if you just boiled his career down to, the last 6 years of it, you'd be hard pressed to over that period of 6 years to really make a good argument that he wasn't the best wide receiver in the NFL over that complete span there. Doing it year in, year out. Of course, the several hundred yard receiving seasons along with it. Let's see, 64.1% of the responders to this poll out of nearly 2,000 people that voted no. He will not be pro now.
Some salty Steelers fans.
Yeah, exactly. Are these salty Steelers fans? Probably.
Sure.
Where do you weigh in on it? You know how I weigh in on it.
Yeah. Well, we had a discussion on our live stream yesterday. I mean, from an on-field perspective, there was no argument to be made against AB being in Canton. And I think he's first ballot from a pure talent on-field standpoint. Of course, the elephant in the room is everything else, the off-the-field stuff. And while I know the criteria is largely supposed to be on field, we know that's not always how it works whenever it comes to voting these guys in. We've seen it with T.O., we've seen it with guys with more serious off-field problems. So here's the way I look at the situation in terms of won't he get in. When you retire, you have to wait 5 years before you can get on the Hall of Fame ballot. What AB does or doesn't do in those 5 years, I think, will determine how he gets remembered. If he kind of goes away quietly and there isn't the chaos that he's had the last 18 months and he's just, former NFL player Antonio Brown and things are pretty calm, I think whenever it comes time to get him on the ballot and to vote him in, people will look at him a lot friendlier and really focus on his on-field history. If he's still, AB of now and being a clown and doing this dumb stuff and getting in trouble and legal stuff and all that, then I think that's going to really hurt him when it comes to the Hall of Fame ballot. So I think it's hard to even answer that right now. What AB does in the 5 years after he actually retires, whenever that may be, will determine how he gets viewed in that long-term scope.
But if memory serves me, wasn't Terrell Owens kind of, look, out of sight, out of mind a lot of times once these guys, play their final game. But wasn't Terrell Owens, for the most part, mellow post into playing career, but it still took him a little while to get in? Was that because of the quote-unquote log jam, at wide receiver?
But T.O. was more divisive with the media themselves. In terms, AB had some issues with media with guys like Bouchette, obviously, but it wasn't in that same middle finger to the media I guess if that makes sense.
I don't know. Your memory's slipping. I mean, that was pretty substantial. The thing with Bouchette and all,
I know.
But I mean, how many licks do you get to the center of the Tootsie Roll Pop? How many strikes do you get in that aspect of it?
Yeah, well, I mean, would Bouchette would have to advocate for him though if he's still on the committee, which he probably won't be on that committee. By the
That's
time
a good point. I forgot about right there.
I mean, Bouchette wasn't even part of the Hall of Fame voting this year, so yeah, I don't even know if it'll be. I know there was that issue there, but I don't know. My thought is just that if he's well, I'm not saying that he even 100% would get in if he's calm, but I certainly would improve his odds. If he's still doing AB stuff and being, a clown and getting in trouble, then I think he's going to have a really tough struggle getting in because it'll remain so fresh in the voter's mind. But if he can be calmer and kind of stay out of trouble and out of all the drama and TMZ type stuff, then I think it's certainly going to be a big benefit to his chances. Now, will he still get in right away knowing his history? It's still, I think, a debate, but certainly the odds are a whole lot better if he stays on the straight and narrow in his post-retirement life.
I like to think things through kind of real thoroughly, and I guess that comes with being older and going through making so many wrong decisions in my life in the past, and especially when it comes to doing what we do now and covering the team, trying to be as objective and look at all angles and all. I forgot to even factor in the whole Ed Bouchette thing. There, so kudos to you for bringing that up, and that's a great aspect of it because. Barring things changing, in the immediate future here, or at least 5 years from right now, Ed would probably be the one that would have to get up there and make the argument for him.
And he probably still would, despite
right. But he would. But what would it be? Ed Bouchette standing up and farting and sitting down again?
Well, to be fair. Is that really any different than what's been happening in the last couple of years?
Good point. But sometimes you got to be careful of which hand that you bite. That sure. May be the one that ultimately feeds you, for the long run, or the one that helps you fish for the eternity there, if you will. But
I don't think Bouchette will be on the committee 6 years from now.
Yeah, probably won't. Maybe you'll be on it by then.
Yeah.
Maybe if they turned all that mess over to a good portion of good bloggers and that and the all pros, they would have a lot more, I think, respected votes and all throughout the years.
Did AB block you? Are you still unblocked by AB?
Oh yeah, I'm blocked by him. But
you were unblocked for a while though. You avoided that for a little bit, didn't you?
No. Look, you can just log out and see.
I know
what you want to see.
I thought you were unblocked for a little bit.
Maybe no. He's had me blocked for quite a while.
All right, me too.
Le'Veon Bell.
You got blocked by Bell.
Oh yeah, Bell blocked me after I wrote that article that he'd never get to 12 whatever million from the Steelers. It was no slight. What was that?
Shut up.
But look, it's never. I try to draw the line. I'm not vindictive to any of these guys. I try to write stuff that I think is going to happen, and base it. Fact, I don't get that invested with these guys anymore. When Steeler games, look back in the 80s and the 90s, I'd punch a hole through the wall. That damn loss to the Chargers in the playoff game. Boy, I used to get really, really upset about games and players and all like that. I don't anymore, and that's probably come from having to try to cover this team as objectively as I can since 2008. Now, my 2008 stuff was a lot more biased, more fanboyish stuff than it obviously is now. Sometimes you try to make an effort to sometimes go the other side a little bit more than you normally would, But I don't have any animosity toward these guys. Look, it's their lives. They have to play and make decisions and move on with their lives. What they do ultimately does not impact me, on a day-to-day basis. So, my suggestion to players, I don't know how I got down this rabbit hole, but I wouldn't read a damn thing in the papers, and I'd stay off the damn social media as well too, because who the hell gives a crap about what I think,
You're old man on the lawn right now.
Yeah, I'm shaking the fist at the clouds right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what I'm saying? Because nothing's
Sure.
good at going to come out of reading someone else's thoughts that don't matter. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, none of us really. You know, all that matters is what the organization thinks and the coaches think, and how the player ultimately performs on the field. And if he's at peace with himself on his play and his day-to-day, week-to-week decisions and stuff like that. But I don't ever hold any. If they won't block me, fine. I mean, I'll work around it.
Yeah. It's tough though for these young guys because they're growing up around social media. They've always had social media, so it's hard to unplug because they've always been tethered to Facebook, to Twitter, to Instagram, to whatever. And so I bet it's getting harder and harder for guys coming into the league to avoid that because that's always been their life.
And look, when you live on social media like I do, boy, it's disgusting. I mean, it's absolutely horrible what you and I have to do every day. You know, as far from a mental aspect, because there's so much doom and gloom, not only in the football world, but in the entire world. And most of it comes through your Twitter line anyway, as many people as we have to follow in the industry, that it gets outright damn depressing. So, I mean, people, I get pissed off with things people tweet at me and block people and all, because, I probably worry a little bit too much more. I just don't like to see a lot of that crap in my timeline and all too.
Sure.
But, my message to players is, man, just stay the heck off of social media and stop reading the papers.
There's certainly a lot of toxicity, and even during this offseason, I tried to pull back a little bit on Twitter to try to be on less and tweet less, and just be a little less online all the time. So good advice all around. But for AB's future, we'll see. Again, I'm not convinced this is retirement for him. I think he still has to get cleared by the NFL. That has not happened yet. Will it happen at some point? Who knows? But if he does, and the team comes calling, if he gets cleared and he wants to play, I think a team will sign him. I think the teams always give second and third and fourth and fifth chances to guys who have the talent. And I don't know how long that would work, how well that would work, but I think someone will try to make it work again if the opportunity is there.
10 years from today, will Antonio Brown be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Oh, man, Dave, that's a really tough question. I'm going to lean yes right now.
I'll say yes.
Slight lean to it, but I think what AB does these next several years will help improve or worsen those odds. All right, Dave, let's jump to our continuing our Steelers training camp, whatever it is, training camp. It's not much of one right now. It feels like preview right now. We did the defensive line in the last show. Today we'll do the edge rushers, and of course, not a whole lot you have to say about guys like T.J. Watt and Bud Dupree, especially now that Dupree's, there's no chance of him getting an extension. There's just a look at the grievance and could they have a compromise, but that's a relatively minor point to the overall season. Expectations should be high for both those guys this year, though, right, Dave?
Boy, absolutely. I mean, beyond double-digit total for both of them. I mean, can the two combine to hit 30? I think that's the biggest question, right?
Yeah, I would take the under on that. I think most people would.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be the logical thing to do, but could it happen? I think it could. I mean, would you bet your house?
Would that be of like Watt 17, Dupree 13, or 15, or what do you think is most likely?
I think obviously the bulk would have to come on TJ's side, 16 or so. Look, I mean, Bud, make no mistake about it, the way this defense is shaping up and the way the offseason, I think, is playing in the favor of, along with the schedule of the Steelers defense this year. They're going to face a lot of younger quarterbacks this year. A lot of things really, really bode well. You have Bud Dupree, if he stays healthy, really made significant strides as a pass rusher. I mean, obviously you would take the under. The smart bet would be to take the under there, but could they hit it? Yes, but I think the bulk of it would have to come obviously from TJ getting to 16, 17, maybe 18 mark in order for that to happen. And obviously Bud, would have to fill in whatever the remaining gap is there. But I don't think it's impossible. I just think it's very unlikely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just the thing with those guys is that obviously we talk about them as pass rushers. National media always focuses them in the landscape of being pass rushers getting after the quarterback, but they're just complete players. Run defense, effort, coverage, although the coverage rates are dropping, they can still function going backwards. The ability to move around the formation, play off ball in some sub-package and different personnel or different formation groupings. These guys can do anything for your defense. Anything you ask them, they can do and do at a high level. And so it's hard to find good pass rushers, but it's hard to find guys that are good pass rushers plus everything else. And the Steelers have two of those guys, and they're a short list of teams that can say that.
Obviously, let's start this way. Ways that T.J. Watt can improve. I know that's probably a very short topic, but just straight power, I think. Adding more of a, like his brother J.J. One of the good pass rushing traits with him is I think more the ability to rush with power better. That long arm, and Lord knows he's got some long arms. His J.J. Watt's arm is probably about as long as you, isn't it?
Probably.
Is there a guy in the NFL that uses the long arm better than J.J.?
Maybe Khalil Mack, but that's about it.
Yeah, and that's a good example there, Khalil Mack. But I would say just overall power ability, being able to rush with power a little bit more, winning with the bull would be one of the very few areas that you'd like to see TJ improve in.
Yeah, it's a very short list. I would probably tend to agree. I remember T.J. Watt, I think last year, talked about how his general pass rush plan was to start with speed, and then once tackles began to sit on that and cheat to the edge, he would go with power. So maybe he has to find ways to start with power, so that'll open up the door with winning with the speed and edge rush a little bit more. But yeah, it is. We're nitpicking clearly because this guy is one of the most complete players in football for sure.
I mean, his hand usage, and I tell you, this past year alone. And I don't think at least I didn't see it as much on his, on his college tape as maybe. You remember one of the things that Kevin Colbert talked about after drafting T.J. Watt was his hands, you know, and I don't, I didn't see that as much as probably most did or some did at Wisconsin there. But I mean, you definitely this past season you've got several examples of him and that hand usage, which leads you to believe he just didn't pick that up in one season, that it was there. Just got to do a better job of kind of finding that stuff on his tape and all.
If memory serves, the back half of 2018, I think it was, where he really started to show the advanced hand use in both the run game and as a pass rusher, and that obviously carried over into 2019.
Do you remember the hand usage being as prevalent in college at Wisconsin? I don't.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at some of the things I wrote. I think it was decent, especially because he was a pretty raw guy, a former tight end. He was pretty advanced, I think, overall. But he turned it on even past his rookie year. Again, 2018, back like the last 8 weeks of 2018, I think is when things really the light kind of turned on for him.
Right. So the list, once again, the list with him on things that, look, people, pass rushers in the NFL can always find little bits here and there, ways to improve, even the great ones. So that would probably be one of the few things with him is the whole power and then countering off of power,
Yeah, so really no major concerns in terms of the present 2020 for Watt and Bud Dupree. The question is depth with this position, and there is talent there, and hopefully someone steps up. But again, lack of opportunity, lack of preseason for a pretty young group overall. There is no veteran guy like Anthony Chicklow, for better or for worse, anymore. So you have Ola, you have Tuzar Skipper, and you have Alex Highsmith, the third-round rookie out of Charlotte, all competing. And I think Ola's going to have the edge right now to start because he's the veteran with the most Sunday experience, and that's going to mean a whole lot to begin the season.
And right now is the point where you just wish that maybe Ola had a little bit, obviously injuries hampered him first couple seasons here. You just wish he had more playing time right now because he's still a very inexperienced player overall. Now he should have a good idea of what he's doing out there now, obviously being in this system. But now it's time to stay on the field. And one of these guys, maybe two of these guys, are going to have to, we hope not have to play a lot, but you would think at max guys, if they stay healthy, like Watt and Dupree, are going to be 750 to 800 snap guys. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but that's going to open up some snaps, on both sides for somebody. The Highsmith thing is going to take him time, I think. Not having this offseason program is obviously not going to help him. Something that we've said right from the get-go with him. Going to be hard to throw him right out there in week 1 or week 4 and get him any significant snaps, in my opinion. So that leaves, the guy who's going to be the guy to do that. The thing about Skipper, great. We saw a lot of good things out of him during the preseason last year, but the thing was, these are against guys. A lot of them are moving furniture right now, probably. And really, when he went over to the Giants, there really not a lot to write home about in his limited playing time that he got. Really as a defensive end, I think with them there. So. Boy, if there's 2 guys that you wish had 4 preseason games to play in this year, it's those 2. Because, I think you're right. I think Ola, technically the next guy up, but can you hang your hat on either one of these guys right now in the short term as Highsmith comes along?
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think you can right now, but if you maybe choose, I think it would be a Daney for those reasons. And obviously all these young guys, even Ola, but especially Highsmith, all these young guys are hurt by the lack of an offseason. But I think the guy that might be hurt the most is Tuzar Skipper, because what was the one thing we've always needed to see with Tuzar Skipper?
With Skipper?
Yeah, what element of it was missing until very late in the preseason last year?
Probably just power.
No, I was going to say special teams.
Oh,
just the guy was not playing on special teams. And what's he not going to get to do this summer?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, at least with Ola, you have tape because, he was doing it last year. Highsmith is going to make the team, obviously, so that's not a concern for him. Other guys like UG3 and Spillane have tape again on special teams. Skipper doesn't have that tape really at all. He did it in the finale last year. Did well, had 2 tackles. I mean, kudos to him, but it just isn't available for him. And trust me, in a camp, even in a normal camp, you really don't get a whole lot of evaluation on that side of things, on the coverage ability of it. And obviously, if you have 0 or maybe at best 1 preseason game, there'll be basically no tape for him. So I think he's going to be in a really tough spot because obviously him being as a pure pass rusher wasn't enough to secure his roster spot last year. The lack of special teams value, the perception of it at least, hurt him, and he's not going to really have a chance to regain that this year because the opportunity simply will not exist.
They're going to carry 5, right? They have to carry 5, right?
It's obviously at least 4, and then the question is, do you do a 5th inside linebacker or a 5th outside linebacker? I think it's more likely to be 5 outside linebackers than 5 inside guys right now, but I wouldn't guarantee it.
Boy, I guess if you're picking the odd guy out right now, who could be the odd guy out right now if they only kept 4, it would obviously be Tuzar Skipper.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah, because obviously I think Ola's got it. Unless Ola gets hurt again, unfortunately the injuries late in summer has always been an issue with him. And then Highsmith, of course, is going to make it. So Tuzar's the one that is at the most risk right now. But yeah, I think Ola's going to start the year as a number 3 outside linebacker. I think maybe Highsmith can work his way in throughout the year. But if things are going well and Ola's playing well, and obviously Watt and Dupree are healthy, you may not rock the boat too much. So it could be a very quiet year for Alex Highsmith, like a lot of rookies.
All right, who's further down the list on here? James Lockhart out of Baylor. Did a couple of good things at Baylor there against some pretty decent competition, but there just wasn't enough of it. He was more of a run-up-the-edge guy, and if he couldn't win that way, he'd get stymied pretty easily. Not so great at having to work back up, reverse the gears up the arc there. A couple good things with some rip moves there, but overall just not a refined guy. And I don't know how much special teams experience he has. He doesn't come off like he'd be initial great special teams guy there. So obviously no off season and all like that going to really work against a guy like James Lockhart. Going to take, I think, an injury or something along those lines to maybe get him. Maybe he can land on the practice squad if they keep 5. If they have room to keep an extra outside linebacker there. But outside of that, you got Christian Kuntz, who's really linebacker / long snapper. A lot of people forget Kuntz had a sack last year. I think during the preseason. Was it against Tampa?
Tampa or Carolina?
Carolina, I forget.
One of the two.
Right. Obviously probably not a lot to work with there overall, but he is on the roster right now. But I mean, who else do you have depth-wise right now?
That's it. Those are the guys. But obviously, you want to try to get, and again, not a lot of reps this preseason, whatever, if there's even a preseason, but you want to give those young guys all the chances possible. So I'm okay with them not having a whole lot of other guys because Daney and Skipper and Highsmith, they need every single rep that they can soak up.
Well, I'm really taking it easy. I want Dupree and Watt to obviously get what they feel that they need to get out of camp. I think both those guys are experienced to know what they need as far as reps and how hard to go and those kind of things. But put those guys in bubble wrap, man, as best as you can, because and look, I mean, you go around the league at every position in the league, one injury can kind of get you into a portion of your depth chart that you don't want to get into. And I think outside linebacker with the Steelers is one of those positions that, one injury could be significant.
Yeah, I think so too. So let's hope it does not happen, because that'll put a lot of stress and strain on a very critical and vital and maybe even a linchpin position to how this defense functions as a whole. So that's the edge group. Next show we will cover the off-ball linebackers and then move for the secondary. All right, Dave. I think that's everything we have. Is there anything I missed that you wanted to? Oh, we have I did have on Steelers Depot this morning interview with DeMarcus Ayers, former Steelers receiver, 7th round pick in 2016. Spent 2016 and a little bit of 2017. I was in Canton next year with them, and it's bounced around the league ever since. You can check out that interview, that article on Steelers Depot that goes through his time in Pittsburgh. But he had some very interesting comments about playing with Ben Roethlisberger and some stuff that I'm sure is fairly obvious, but it's just really good to hear it from a player, to talk about just how important it is having chemistry with Ben, working with Ben, gaining his trust. Here's the one quote from him that I think is really important for you guys to hear. Ayers said on Ben, quote, "If you have his trust, you're going to play. It's that simple. Whatever Ben says goes." And he said that Ben line, when you're working with the ones in camp, you're catching passes from Ben as opposed to the backup quarterbacks, is really critical to having his trust and getting that chemistry and basically getting Ben into your corner. So something to keep an eye on in future for training camp, and just kind of tells you, and again, it's partly obvious, but good to confirm this, just how much influence Ben has in that room.
All right, that makes a great segue here. Who is a guy that probably has a lot of Ben Roethlisberger's trust in the receiving room?
One, Ryan Switzer, who said on Instagram Live yesterday he wants to be one of the best slot receivers in football. And listen, I know it's very easy to dunk on Ryan Switzer, and the odds of him becoming that are very slim. But I'm not going to knock the guy for being confident. And what's he supposed to say? I'm going to suck this year? I respect him wanting to set his goals high.
He says, "I have no doubt I'll be up there and I'll be talked about like Edelman is, like Welker was, like Jamison Crowder, Cole Beasley, this and that's, I guess, the long and short of it. Talking about kind of what he expects. Look, I have no problem with guys aiming high and speaking it into existence here, but he's got to know that you say something like that, you're going to get a lot of pushback. From a fan base. You know how I feel about him and whether or not he belongs on the roster. I don't hate the guy. I think the guy is a great team player, great human, all the way around. It's just results. This is a results-based business, and so far he hasn't had that. But I do think this offseason plays into his favor.
For sure.
Because he knows that playbook inside and out. And if Ben has as much pull as much as guys like Ayers and others, probably have said over the years, Ben's probably going to have Ben's probably going to be pulling for this guy. So the chances of him making this 53-man roster as we sit here right now have to be considered strong.
I agree. Another interesting quote from Ayers, because Ayers also was with the Patriots. He left Pittsburgh, turned down a practice squad opportunity to go to New England. It was offering more money and probably a better opportunity because they had some injuries there. And he said with Belichick, I've seen Belichick cuss Brady out, not disrespect him, but get on his ass. I've never seen Coach Tomlin do that with Ben ever. The first time I saw it in New England, it was like, oh, this is very different. So rightly or wrongly, definitely a different approach from head coach to quarterback in that relationship.
We've talked about this a few times as we sit here, along the way here. I don't think I had Switzer on my initial 53-man roster, which I'm fixing to update here in the next day or two. I have a feeling I'm going to put him back on it.
Yeah, get on the Switzer train. It's pretty light. It's pretty sparse company right now.
Well, where are you? You're still in the mind that he's going to make it?
Yeah, I think I had him on my initial roster prediction, and if I didn't, I'm going to change that, but I'm pretty sure I did. So yeah, I think for all those reasons, by being a veteran, by having return value, by being the really kind of only guy with that traditional slot type, with Ben's trust and the lack of an offseason hurting all these young guys. Had it been a normal season and the Saeed Blacknalls and even Deion Keynes of the world could have time to really come in and impress, sure. But in a year like this where there's just no opportunity to do so, you're going to go with the more known guys, and especially when that relates to Ben trusting them immensely. That trust will not be there with a Saeed Blacknall or Anthony Johnson or whoever you want to mention. It will be there with Ryan Switzer.
What'd you find when you went back through the Dan Kreider tape?
Yeah, just a fun thing I wanted to do. It's a very short video, but just, he was just a mauling blocker, and I don't think he gets the respect and gets easily forgotten because fullbacks aren't even a position today, hardly. I mean, a little bit in Pittsburgh, obviously, with the signing of Derek Watt, but cool little look back on Dan Kreider, and found all four touchdowns he had in his career, which was a nice little touch.
I took a look back on Sunday, players that, that series that I had a year ago or 2 years ago. I kind of revived it here about, Memba this player.
I love the way you title that. Memba.
People just think that I can't write, well, which is true. But, the last player to wear number 47 before Mel Blount. And that player was Marv Woodson, and former first-round draft pick of the Baltimore Colts out of Indiana that almost immediately got traded by the Colts to the Steelers during his rookie season there. This is a guy that, believe it or not, had quite a few interceptions through his first few seasons with the Steelers there. But he did ultimately kind of quit on the Steelers, and Chuck Noll didn't let battle some injuries during his final season, and a position move from cornerback to safety didn't go too terribly well from him. Looking back at, I think, at the 1969 season, this guy was the Steelers' lone Pro Bowl player in 1967. Had, I think, what did he have? 7, 8 interceptions, 7 interceptions on defense that season. There at one point it looked like he was going to lead the league in that category, but kind of tapered off there in that 1967 season. But he was the Steelers' only Pro Bowl player that year. But when you look back, I hope I can find the guy's name real quick here that I was wanting to talk about. Pull up the
Bill Saul?
No, the Steelers franchise leader in interceptions list is what I want you to pull up real quick.
Okay.
There is a name on there that at some point I'd like to write about here. Interesting.
Clarence Thomas? I don't know who.
No. Do you have the Steelers defensive leaders all time there? Hold on. Here. I'll pull it up for you.
Here.
This is awkward. Do it.
That's what we're good at here. Not prepared shows, as you can tell. All right, I have the list pulled up here.
Okay, I do too as well too. See number 12, Howard Hartley.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
25 interceptions in 45 games.
That's a good ratio.
That is a great ratio, and the guy kind of abruptly retired. I think I tried to look back in some of the old newspaper archives and what had happened to him. I got to research it a little bit more thorough. But Howard Hartley is still currently hasn't played since 1952. Is 12th place on the Steelers' all-time interception list with 25. And I came across that name because I wanted to see where Woodson was, and Woodson had 18. Marv Woodson had 18 during his 5 years in really 4.5 years in Pittsburgh, because I think he got waived by the Steelers 8 games through the 1969 season there. But Marv Woodson's 19th overall on that list with 18. But I was going through the list, and Howard Hartley was a name that I don't really remember studying and looking deep into. But to have 25 interceptions in 45 games, that's the first thing that stuck out to me. They're quite phenomenal. It makes you wonder what a guy like that, had he continued playing, and I'm assuming maybe he had health issues or injury issues, whatnot, man, if that guy kept up that kind of pace and even remotely close to it, how much further he'd be up on the Steelers' all-time interception list.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. I wrote about him back in 2017.
Okay.
Just a short little write-up. I'm not even sure what the context was here. But yeah, it looks like Hartley, he had 10 interceptions in, 1951. Obviously, different era interception rates were a lot higher, but still, really impressive numbers. Yeah, 6 picks, 5 picks, 10 picks, 4 picks in those 4 years with the Steelers. So, yeah, that'll be a cool write-up. Look forward to that.
I don't know if I'll get to it the rest of this offseason, but it's a guy that I'm digging. I've been digging the old papers on, trying to learn a little bit more about. But Marv Woodson was an interesting guy to look back at. Last player to wear number 47 for Mel Blount was drafted in 1970 and took it over from there.
There you go. And then with the reference, what was the reference to Bill Saul in that article too?
He was part of that trade that brought Woodson. Bill Saul came over in that deal along with Woodson from the Colts in exchange for kicker Lou Michaels.
Gotcha. Bill Saul, first player to be mic'd up in NFL history. There's a good video on him floating around on YouTube you guys can check out.
There really is a good video of him that Saban, Sable.
Steve Sable. Yeah. All right, Dave, let's get to some reader emails and close out the show.
All right, let's see what we have in the old email machine here. Jelani Suleiman's back in the email box. Hey, Dave and I, love the show. In my opinion, Steelers, Chiefs, and Ravens have the 3 best home field advantages in the AFC. With it looking like no fans or fans in a reduced capacity for the season, which of those 3 teams do you think will be affected the most by that? Also, do you guys think the Steelers need a first-round bye to make the Super Bowl? Thanks as always. Keep up the good work. Boy, that's a good question. Which of those 3 teams, Steelers, Chiefs, or Ravens, would be most impacted at home by not having fans in the stands?
Well, I guess the question is, what is the toughest place to play for an away team? That would be negated by the lack of fans. And it's funny, I didn't even put this in the article, but DeMarcus Ayers told me that Arrowhead was the toughest place he ever had to play. It was even much louder than even what Heinz Field could be. So I would go Kansas City as losing, because everyone says that Arrowhead is Heinz Field. Heinz Field's a good place to play, but it's not. They sit on
their hands sometimes there, don't they?
It's not what it could be. Maybe because it's a smaller stadium slightly, but yeah, Arrowhead, most people agree that is the toughest place to play.
I will go with the Chiefs as well, too. That was my first thought when reading those 3 teams off there. Do you guys think the Steelers need a first-round bye to make the Super Bowl? It wouldn't hurt.
Well, now it's only one team gets a bye, right? With the 7. Yeah, so basically, the odds of that are slimmer. Obviously, you have to win the AFC. So, no, I don't think they need a bye, though, as you say. It certainly would not hurt.
Yeah, certainly would not hurt, but I don't think it's a prerequisite, as they would say. Jameson Richard writes in, there are reports that there may be no preseason games if the entire season is canceled before the Steelers sign their draft picks. Would the Steelers lose their rights to the players? What would the players have to lose by not signing? They wouldn't get paid anyway if the season were not played. Wouldn't they become free agents after the year? No, I think I'm not 100% on this, but I think they still would retain their rights. But obviously, if other teams, are signing players and the season starts in any capacity whatsoever, and if you don't have the players sign, I don't think there's anything. Long and short of it, I don't know the exact language of maybe how this is written, but I think the Steelers would retain their rights, unless it was a situation where they just denied signing them because of an injury or something like, some failed physical. I don't know, something along those lines. But I don't, if they didn't play and they weren't signed, I'm not sure how that would work out. But I would think the Steelers would retain their rights on that. But Lord knows, let's hope I'm not having to dig deeper to find the answer to that question.
Yeah, all these rookies, you read about what the other day, Dave, all these rookies should be signed pretty soon, and the season's not going to be canceled in the next 15 days.
Boy, you guys really do some hard thinking about some of these questions. Things I hope I never really have to find the answer to there. Let's see. Michael Carlson writes in, "Hey, David Knox, in this quiet NFL period, I've been watching those Super Bowls from the 70s. I wonder if you could comment on two observations. The shoulder pads were huge, high or wide or both. Are they just smaller today because of technology? I think that's your answer right there, Mike. I just think they've been slimmed down over the years, and maybe not as effective, but just not as bulky as they used to be. So that'd be number one. The second part of this question, Swan and maybe others often seems to jump and catch passes with the body instead of not jumping and just extending his hands. Have receiving techniques evolved? That's a great observation, Michael. I really didn't think about it until you wrote it up and asked it there. Yeah, I mean, trying to think back in my mind, who was the best hands catcher of the 70s? Would have been someone like maybe Maynard. What Maynard more of a hands catcher? What about Casper? Dave Casper? Wasn't he?
Yeah.
Or what about Blitnikoff?
Yeah, Blitnikoff might be your pick.
And yeah, I think if me trying to go back and trying to remember several at least higher profile Steelers catches. Yeah, I think Michael might be right. A lot of body catches in it. I just think coaching has changed and evolving of the position and all has played a part in it. And I'd have to go back and try to figure out who were some of the best hands catchers back in that era. And the first names that come to mind would have been like maybe a Blitnikoff or a Don Maynard or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm. It was hard to catch some of those Bradshaw bullets, though. They kind of came into your body whether you wanted to or not, because it was hard to just catch with your hands because those things were rockets. But yeah, it's a good question. I don't have obviously a whole lot of insight here. Dave could answer that better than I could, but interesting thought.
Yeah, I think Lynn Swan was a body catcher, quite a bit.
Did have one nice catch with his hands though down the right sideline against Dallas in the Super Bowl. We'll say that.
Let's see. Bryce writes in. Would you put Brian McFadden as one of the top three corners the Steelers have drafted since 2000? Why or why not?
Your first thought's no, but then you go, who would I put as the top three Steelers corners drafted? I mean, obviously Ike is number one, right? There's no one else above Ike, correct?
2000, right? Yeah.
Well, Ike was later than 2000, yeah. And so McFadden. What
I'm saying is 2000 is the time period we're dealing with.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, McFadden might be a number two.
Let's see, and it's
got to be
players drafted, right? I mean, look.
Well, I mean, Deshae. No, what's
he was
where's
Deshae?
98
or something.
98, yeah. Deshae was 98. He was pre-Colbert, so does not count.
Let's go back to 2000. Certainly wasn't Hank Poteet.
No.
Let's see here. Certainly wasn't LeVar Glover. Chris Hope was a safety.
Mm-hmm.
Ike Taylor in 2003.
Yeah, he's number one.
Ricardo Coakley? Nope. No, thank you.
Big
Bryant McFadden, 2005.
Keenan Lewis.
Them early days of Keenan. I don't know. William Gay's going to be up there somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Will Gay and Tomlin's first class in 07.
Would you rank William Gay ahead of McFadden? I would.
They're pretty similar dudes, but yeah, I would probably, because I think Gay had more pick sixes for sure. I think had more interceptions.
It wasn't Keenan Lewis or Joe Burnett in 2009. It definitely wasn't Cresden Butler in 2010. Curtis Brown and Cortez Allen. Cortez had a moment there, but that was it.
That was a brief moment. McFadden definitely over him.
Boy, I think that's it, right?
You get into the Artie Burns of the of Senquez Golsons of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, Cam Sutton. I mean, if he sticks around, maybe could work. I would probably rank it as Ike, Gay, McFadden, top three.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at as well too.
Yeah, and so that's a long time since any of those guys got drafted, and that kind of tells you the way this team's drafted corners. But kudos to them for just throwing a bunch of money in for agency at it, because that's been their best solution so far.
Bryce writes, I anticipate that the first 8 games for Ben Roethlisberger might not be spectacular if he can take what the defense gives him while he gets back into the speed of playing real games, not get too greedy to try to overly push the deep ball and get into good rhythms via consistent play calling. Then he can be efficient enough to win and then really turn it up for the final 8 games of the season after he's got some games under his belt. Look, just don't turn the football over.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some rust with Ben, but I think it'll be a little less than what people think. I think it's going to take half a season, and Ben's going to ramp it up. Ben's not going to play super scared or conservative to begin the year. I mean, he's Ben. He's a competitor. So there'll be some rust there for sure, some getting back to it, but I think that'll go away pretty quickly.
Yeah, I don't have any issue looking forward to some 289 passing yard games with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions.
Yeah, but when it's 3rd and 9, he's going to be Ben. You don't have a choice.
Or 3rd and 1.
Okay, maybe a different choice there, but yeah. Point taken.
He likes to take those deep shots on 3rd and short. You can't blame him if he gets the look that he likes in those situations. There, and we've said this several times about Ben. I think one of the big things, what I'm looking forward to about Ben this year is being able to connect at a higher rate with the deep ball earlier in the season. 45% or on up, what I'm kind of hoping for. 2018 did not have a great at all first half of the season on the deep ball. And like it or not, I think you're going to see a lot of dink and dunk again. There was nothing wrong, I don't think, with 2018 Ben Roethlisberger other than the fact that he had drives a lot of long fields, which dink and dunk. You got to have big plays when you have to drive long fields consistently, and
it was the red zone interceptions that was the issue with him.
Right. Well, look, I mean, what was it like?
5, I think. 5.
Right. How many of those went to AB that were kind of forced?
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. True.
Just don't force the ball. I think maybe that'd be the biggest thing. Don't force the ball. Don't make any situations. Live to play another series. Punt sometimes isn't necessarily a bad thing unless it goes 18 yards. But right.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, I'm with you. You want to be smart with the football, but to the broader point with Ben, again, some rust, but it'll be shaken up pretty quickly, and Ben's instincts will kick in, and he'll be Ben. I think in short time.
Let's see. Edwards' 5th-year option. I think he means Edmonds here from Brett and I wanted to comment on something that you said in the Friday podcast. You said something to the effect that he must have he's got Edwards in here. I think he means Edmonds. Would need to do a lot this year to have the team pick up his 5th-year option. I actually think the opposite is the case. You'll have to do a lot to prevent them from picking it up. Simple reality is that there's no viable alternative on the roster currently, and you won't have a chance to add a long-term option until after the season is over. You're probably not drafting safety high next year, so you're not going to be able to get an alternative before you have to make the decision. Personally, I see Edmonds as a good, not great, strong safety, so the 5th-year option will be a slight overpay, but not so great as to risk creating a hole that forces you to draft the safety. Hopefully, he takes the kind of step that Dupree took that makes the decision a lot easier. Thanks for all you do. Wanted to plug the ad-free version of the site and ask a question. How do you know when your year is up? How do you renew it? That's a good question. I don't know if it sends you an email or not, or if you have to keep the email when you registered. I don't know. I'll have to look into that, Brett. That's a good question. As far as your comment on Edmonds and the 5th-year option, you're missing a vital portion of this piece of puzzle here, Brett. The fact is that when the Steelers have to make a decision on Edmonds next offseason about his 5th-year option, it's about it's about the season afterward. It's not this coming season's, 2021. So he's going to play in 2000. You would think that he's going to play in 2021 regardless, right?
Yeah, wait, 21 is
the final year of his rookie fourth year of his contract. So if you're picking up his option, you're picking it up for 2022.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, you're not forced to pick. It's not a, well, you don't have, just because of the depth chart and how you might draft in 2021, to me has no bearing on whether or not you pick up his fifth-year option, because 2021 is going to sort itself out. And then if you obviously if you haven't picked up his fifth-year option, you might have to address it in the 2022 draft. But when does that stop them from addressing a position of need before?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's still up in the air right now. But generally, the only times they have not put the option on somebody when they've been like bona fide busts, Jarvis or Artie. Even Dupree got it in last year. I was kind of griping about that. So I don't know. I mean, there's some validity to that point, but we'll see what happens from this season and kind of go from there.
And now aren't they fully guaranteed once you pick them up?
Right. Yeah, it's no longer you can rescind it or cut them. So that's another factor to consider as well.
Right. And one thing I think boding well maybe for Edmonds come that time is what's the fifth year option amount going to be on a safety?
Yeah, probably not
relative to other positions.
Right. Safety market's on the lower end of things, at least as of right now.
Right. So, that might be the only thing boding well. Look, just here's the thing. If he plays well, if he makes a nice nice improvement in 2020, they'll pick it up, but just playing like he's played to date, and maybe just only a little bit better might not be enough. I don't think you do it just because, 2022, we would have to draft a guy.
Yeah, I don't think you would do it because of that. I think you would do it because you'd be telling yourself, well, he's been getting better. He's not terrible. And maybe he just needs another year the way that Dupree needed a year, rightly or wrongly. That might be the team's mindset.
All right. He's got another question here. I hope this finds you well. Listen to the podcast. I think McCullers is really not the backup nose tackle. In my opinion, he's more of a role player. Think of him as a situational lefty in baseball. He's kept not as a backup, but as a guy to perform a specific role. In Dan's case, he's there to give them a two-gap interior lineman for short yardage, goal line, field goal block, and the occasional two-gap nose tackle snaps. That's why they have kept him and why he's usually active on game day. I think that's also why he has a lot of has lost all the competitions for starting jobs so quickly. Just like a lefty at the end of the pen who is brought in to get one guy out 60 times a year. McCullers is there for 5 to 10 snaps a game. They need a two-gap player. If you're holding them for that, that's not enough.
Yeah, at least the lefty has a lot more value in that analogy. I understand the point you're trying to make there, but the number of times the field goal block team versus goal, they were in goal line like 10 snaps last year. The value is just not. You can't make that comparison. I don't think
they just have failed to identify and get a guy yet that can beat him out. Plain and simple. Look, you want to talk about a guy that's in danger of losing his roster spot this year, even before all this stuff, and we'll see how the stuff plays with obviously with the cap and all like that. This guy's ripe for the picking off the vine right here.
I still think he's going to make it. I still think the veterans are going to have the advantage this year for all the reasons for the lack of offseason. So Switzer, McCullers, in a normal year, it might have been tougher, but who's really going to push him?
How many snaps has Dan McCullers played
in his career? I looked it up. Yeah, it's funny. I looked it up yesterday. It's like 680 or something over going into his 7th year.
Has he played that many?
605.
McCullers has played that many snaps.
Yeah,
I would have bet again. I would have bet that would have been lower, and I watch every game.
Yeah, he's at least according to Pro Football Reference, but no more. His high mark was 182 in 2016. Played 131 last year, 111 in 2018, 13 in 2017, 605 total, 236 on special teams. That's basically all field goal block team.
You didn't include special teams in that, right?
No, yeah, 605 defense, 236 special teams separate.
Man,
but that's an average of what is that? 100 snaps a season,
I guess,
on average.
Whew. He's got pictures of somebody. We'll see how it plays out with him.
I don't begrudge Big Dan. Good job to making this far. Very few 6th-round picks make it to 7 years, let alone 7 years with one team. I just don't understand the rationale. I have no ill will to Big Dan.
Yeah, I have no ill will to him either, other than I think he, I think he's kind of skated by a few years there, but we'll see what happens this year. Kudos to him, like you said, for guys drafted that late, and especially the position he plays in today's NFL,
right.
Or what he's quote unquote, better at. for to stick around this long, definitely kudos,
Mm-hmm.
To him. All right, I think that's got us kind of caught up on a lot of these emails. Alex, you got anything to add as we get out the door here?
Ian Rappaport has a tweet, and this is all under the capsule of proposal. But what would a training camp be like under the NFL's latest ramp-up proposal? Testing and physicals for 5 to 6 days, strength and conditioning plus walkthroughs through day 12, so basically like day 7 through day 12, off day 13, ramp up with helmets through day 18, off day 19. On the 20th day, the pads go on. So even if training camp starts, we're going to be desperate for some content because there's not going to be a whole lot happening for a bit under the NFL's latest proposal.
Let's see, you would be about 6 days into covering the team at training camp about right now. You realize that? Because they would have reported about, what, like the 15th or so? Or
Oh, yeah, because the 22nd was the Hall of Fame game. Tomorrow would have been the Hall of Fame game, right? Is that where they were going to report the 22nd?
I think
they were going to report the 22nd.
Okay. So maybe tomorrow would have been initially the first day of Steelers training camp then.
So I would have been going. What's today? Tuesday. I would have been going on Thursday. Would have been day 1 of practice because the first day is just conditioning and getting there.
Okay. All right. For some reason, I kept thinking I wanted to think it was the 15th, but I'm confused in the pre-date with that. So
I'm gonna miss it.
Yeah, we'll sit here and cry in our oatmeal here. But all right. In the meantime, what are we going to talk about on Friday? You think?
That's a good question. Hopefully some more concrete information on what the NFL's proposal is going to be, how many preseason games there are going to be, any player opt-outs, which I expect probably very few right now, but maybe some. We'll see. See what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what transpires between.
If they cut the roster down, that could be some news. If they cut 10 guys each team. Hope they don't.
Yeah. All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and we entertain you and you'd like to pay us back, go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the donate button, upright navigational bar. That'll take you to PayPal so you can make a secure donation that way. Also, if you'd like an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the ad-free button, upright navigational bar. And for 1 calendar year, for $25, you can have an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for reading all of our work. Thanks for listening to the podcast and all. Thanks for participation all the way around on the social media channels as well, too. Until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.